Welcome to another episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Our hosts, Sri Gopalan, Peter V.S. Bond, and Brian Gildenberg explore how brands and retailers engage consumers in an increasingly digitally driven world. And now, here are the CPG Guys.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the CPG Guys podcast. I'm of course Sri, your co-host, and joining me is PVSB. And when he's not co-hosting this podcast, he serves as partnership acceleration lead at Flywheel, a division of Omnicom that helps enterprise brands improve their SEO and SEM, growing their e-commerce businesses. Peter, all the way from 2,500 miles across the continent, across the United States. How you doing, man?
Hey, Sri, I'm doing okay. Busy first quarter. It's been crazy. A lot of travel. I think I took 9 different trips, and it's taking its toll on me, and I'm already starting to dread what's out in front of me. I've waved off a couple of big events, like I'm not going to go to NACDS. I ultimately didn't go to CAGNY, and I'm trying to be a little more conscious about how I dedicate my time for activities. I love getting out in the industry, as I know you do, and talking to people, but sometimes it takes a toll on our lives, right?
You and I have historically done that, Peter, because you and I are benefiting from education. That's how we learn from others. But yes, there is something called how much is too much, right? So folks, please do listen to my older daughter, Ria Raj's music at www.riaraj.com, RHEARAJ, and follow my younger daughter, Lara Raj, as a member of the Geffen Records group Cat's Eye, while my wife, Kavita Raj, has her own podcast, Lights, Camera, Convo, on iHeartRadio and all streaming platforms. In May, as I've said many times, 4 of us will have our own podcast. Kind of crazy if you thought about it. No guests today, but we will ask that you help spread the word about this community we've created in the CPG Guys beyond sharing our podcast with your friends. If you're using Apple Podcasts or Spotify as your preferred listening platform, leave us a rating as it helps feed the algorithm and makes us more findable by CPG retail people like you looking for education, entertainment, and also you can pass judgment on whether you like our podcast or not. With that rating, we know whether we're being the right guests and we have the right conversations. We're happy that we're also part of an impressive collective, highly rated podcasts, including CPG Guys Fast Forward, hosted by Brian Gildenberg, CPG Scoop with Risa and Jennifer, and the FMCG Guys with Daniel, Efrain, and Christine. Finally, we're proud of our allyship with Next Up, whose mission is to advance the cause of women in business and to promote gender equality in the workplace. Next Up has terrific educational and networking resources available to its members. I serve on the board of directors leading the development committee of Next Up. Links to our podcast, our sister cast, our landing page on Next Up, and the social media profiles of my daughters, Ria and Laura, can be found in the digital liner notes of this episode. So let's get this conversation going and combine the perspectives of 2 aspirational leaders. Who are those 2 guests today? Why, it's none other than PVSB and Sri on our own today. And here we are. What are the hottest topics?
Can we do that, Sri? We don't have, we're our own guests. That seems like harkening back to our first handful of episodes when it was just you and me asking each other questions.
Our show, we can do whatever we want.
We're going to old school here.
We're going back to episodes 1 to 5, 365 episodes later.
Oh, that was some raw footage, my friend. My God, we didn't have the incredible podcasting voices we have now, did we?
Or the radio faces, which have clearly in 4 years warped and changed too.
Indeed.
So who else other than Sri and PVSP? And what we're covering today is wrap up Q1 2024 on the calendars behind us. So let's talk about some of the hot topics that are interest and top of mind to the CPG industry. And I'll kick it off first, Peter. And obviously, right up top, the niche of this podcast, so many guests come by to talk about retail media, what's new, what's hot. And the one that stood out in my mind is Home Depot changed its name for retail media. It just doesn't slow down, does it? There's a new entrant. There's new asks, new capabilities, new leadership. What's going on in the retail media world?
Yeah, rose by any other name. Home Depot changed it from Retail Media Plus to Orange Apron Media. That's just a relaunch of a naming convention. But there are a lot of other entrants, and we've talked about this with other guests recently, just a massive amount of fragmentation going on in the industry. Everybody wants to get into it. Right? I understand it from a retailer's perspective, right? When you're operating on a net 2% margin as grocery retailers do, and suddenly you have the opportunity to get a gross margin of, 60, 70%. Of course you want to do that. You want to avail yourself of it. The problem is that there are too many networks. And in the current ecosystem, brands trying to manage against those, they end up being less than ideal for either party in the equation. What I mean by that is the really big platforms, the ones that have scale, there is full funnel activation. They're doing on-site advertising, they're doing off-site programmatic, they're doing connected TV, they're even starting to do in-store. And that is being executed by teams that are trained and expert in doing that. But for some of the other retailers, first and foremost, it's not incremental revenue going to the retailer for the most part. It's just shifting around trade funds from in-store activities to support their retail media network. But generally speaking, the people that are doing the executing are on the trade team supporting that retailer. So what they end up doing is focusing more on investing against mid-lower funnel on-site advertising, the brand store, sponsored search. They're really not getting into the promise that most of these RMN see as the mechanism to reach dollars that until now have been allocated towards national promotional activities, FSIs in the old days, print media, and certainly linear television. And as a result of that, they're not realizing it. The brands have to focus on a handful of retailers that have scale. And so it's great that there's been some effort as an industry to kind of standardize the way you do measurement. That's really great. But until we start breaking down these walls and make it frictionless for a brand to activate against a whole suite of retailers, particularly the regionals and super regionals, in a very seamless effort, right? The way they can when they go advertise at Amazon or Walmart or Target, the dollars for the most part are going to be limited to mid-lower funnel, and they will come out of the trade fund. So I don't see a lot changing, but there's a lot of understanding from these RMNs that the reality isn't as picturesque as the promise had been when they started selling this in. I've started to see some senior leaders on the retail media side that pitch this to their senior leadership. All of a sudden, if they're not doing a lot of e-commerce, saying, hey, we can use our big audiences to do upper funnel advertising, the dollars aren't coming. And suddenly those retailers are saying, wait, you promised me this was going to be a big opportunity. So there's still a lot of fits and starts to this industry as we scale out, and fragmentation is a big issue.
The one thing, though, I do want to in the retail media space, it's my Sri and the CPG guys' general advice to brands listening in. This space is not going to go away. It's not going to diminish. You're going to have to figure out how you manage retail media.
The dollars are getting bigger.
An attack on war on retail media and budgets isn't going to solve this issue for you. You do need to figure out how to optimize it for sure. There's no debate. It proliferated the last 4 years, but you have to take it as a challenge absolutely head on.
At the end of the day, the declining influence of linear television and print media is going to necessitate brands to seek discovery through other mechanisms. And those mechanisms are programmatic, driven by a closed loop measurement system, connected television, and increasingly in-store. And that is the bread and butter of what retail media networks offer to advertisers. They just need to make it easier for them to buy the media at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
They need to make it easier. Once that friction is reduced, then brands can adjust their advertising and those networks will start to see the dollars come in. But right now, it's still a bit challenging because, as I said, most of the brands are just focusing full funnel on the big players that have national scale, and the ones that are regional in nature are really only seeing value in mid to lower funnel on-site advertising.
Yeah, so I'm going to shift us, Peter, to another topic now, which is the industry grade debate. 4 years since COVID happened. Can't believe it's late March. I mean, this point, 4 years ago, we were sitting down, Peter. I gave you a call, said, hey, why don't we make YouTube videos of education and share it with the community when we both got our commute times back? And here we are. One of the big questions that's facing the CPG industry and scale brands and retailers is store traffic back? And is it back to historical levels pre-2019? Because obviously over COVID, a lot of stuff shifted online. So my simple answer to is store traffic back is it's a very complicated answer depending on how you analyze, because none of us can deny that e-commerce has changed its penetration category over category over category in the last 4 years. If your category penetration, and take a simple one, I'll stick to our favorite category, food and beverages, change from the 4-5% range on the high to the 15-17% range, and in some cases maybe even 20 depending upon the retailer. If those transactions are moved online, no matter how large the basket may be, maybe smaller baskets, larger baskets, more frequency, bottom line, those shoppers have reduced the number of times they come in store. That's just a fact we can't deny. If the penetration is up so significantly high, like 3x online. The second thing is a lot of concentration on store trips now around paychecks and paycheck dates, given the rapid inflation over the last 4 years, and also a shift in our transact baskets and sizes and transactions. The same as 4 years ago? No, it has changed. Innovation slowed down significantly last 4 years. So what's in the basket, the treasure hunt mentality has now become a privilege of a handful of retailers and not necessarily everybody, depending on what innovation you chose to put out. So the simple answer in my head, Peter, has store traffic come back? I would say not at the 2019 historic levels. What's in those baskets has changed. The size of the baskets has changed. You got to muscle up on your digital omnichannel capabilities. Even when they're coming in store, they're whipping out a phone. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but the historic precedence and amount on how they whipped out their phone versus now, it's completely changed. What do you think?
I think this actually is symptomatic of a transition from looking at the market as omnichannel and now starting to think of it more the way that our good friend Michael Zakor first coined the term to the both of us as a unified commerce, right? I think we have to break down these walls between thinking someone's shopping online versus in-store. What did I do this morning? I went online, placed an order for Target, and I drove to the store and I picked it up. And then what did I do? Just like Matt Drzwicki recently predicted in an episode we recorded with him, I actually got out of the car with Nadia and went into the Target after having something delivered to my car, and I made another purchase. So that type of a transaction, guess what? It was inspired and it started as a digital transaction, but it was activated and supplemented through an in-store visit. So I think we have to recognize, to your point, Sri, that people carry these devices around. I carried the device. I used it to place an order. I used it to tell the store that I was in the parking lot. They bought the product. And then I used my app to walk into the store and know exactly what aisle number to go to find the product I was looking for, that I realized after I got halfway to the store I needed to get while I was there. So that's the reality. So thinking about whether in-store is back, absolutely in-store is back. By mere virtue of the fact that people are getting out of their house when they were cooped up during the pandemic, it's there. It's just that we have to recognize that people are now much more comfortable using their mobile app for all sorts of things. Think about how ubiquitous QR codes have become in how we order food, how we learn information. It's going to transform the inside of the store. Why? Because consumers are walking through the store with their mobile app, and as they're shopping for products, they've grown accustomed to the incredible content that they can find on products online. And so they don't want to be robbed of that experience as they walk a physical store. So it's beholden on every single retailer to, again, break down that friction. So as people are walking the physical store, they can get the same customer experience they get when they're shopping online, getting that content in addition to the actual ability to physically hold the product in their hands when in the store. This is why I think if we talk about is in-store back, of course it's back, but it's back better than it was before because it brings with it all of the CX that they've come to expect during their time really immersing themselves in content during the pandemic, because that's the way they had to shop. That's my thought, Sri.
So I'll summarize that. It's saying, CPG Guys' opinion here, Yes, in-store traffic is back, looks different, more fascinating. Basket sizes may not be the same. Of course, a lot of transactions have moved online. The example Peter gave you there, Matt, literally said, hey, I park, pick up my target order, and then I go inside, but he may be only buying one thing or two things as opposed to a whole basket. So should you be investing? Should you be looking at the in-store model again? 1000% are. We would feel strongly that, yeah, and Peter and I often walk in store. We can visually observe traffic is back for whatever that's worth. So I'll move us to the exact opposite side of the paradigm. Peter, what do you think? E-commerce slowing down. Obviously, it's not going to have the 100% growth rates that it did over COVID when people had to be indoors. But now that the giant growth phase is over, you work every day in this space. Your opinion matters. What are you hearing from your brand clients? Is there a pullback from e-commerce digital investments?
So let me differentiate between how a CPG brand staffs its organization relative to e-commerce and the actual impact on e-commerce. So I do think, and you and I have talked about this, that there is a growing recognition amongst the CPG community that digital commerce marketing is a skill set that a brand marketer has to have intrinsically in their role. There's no longer the need for a completely separate organization that's focused on it. Yeah, there's a need for people who are devoted to identifying tools and capabilities, but it shouldn't be someone completely separate from, the Oreo brand management team that's focused in the long run on Oreo e-commerce. That being said, no, there's a lot of e-commerce. As I kind of described in my last answer, I think you have to move from this pure e-commerce thought of I'm just buying a lot of transactions online, and I had to do that during the pandemic, to now I'm conducting transactions that digital and e-commerce is a component of it, but it may not be the end-to-end experience where I order it online and it gets delivered to my house or put in my own refrigerator. So I think that where I see a lot of brands focused on, they've built up the skill set and the capabilities to support the markets that are very mature in this space. So we're talking about the EU5, we're talking about North America. And where are they focusing now? I hear a lot of questions coming at me from brands around big marketplaces like Mercado Libre in Latin America and marketplaces that are in other areas where there's still a lot of growth opportunity: Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Mexico. So I think it's less about they're seeing the acceleration in the markets that are fairly well developed. They're just trying to export those capabilities to be where in the areas of the country where, like, you look at a company like Colgate, right? Colgate Palmolive, their single largest market, and this is based on their annual report, this isn't any proprietary information I'm sharing with you, you'd think it's North America. Nope, not even close. Their biggest market, if you ask Diana Hostling, she'll attest to this, it's Latin America, right? This is a brand, Colgate, which has like 86% household penetration. But Latin America is a much bigger market, and it's not nearly as developed as North America or the EU5. So there's huge opportunities for companies like them in that area of the world. So I think e-commerce is still growing. I just think that you and I are pretty close to the North American market for obvious reasons. We live here. It's just they're shifting their priorities, and they're trying to deploy the resources where they can still harvest that incredible growth that we saw during the pandemic in North America and leverage that in other marketplaces. That's my thought. What do you think?
The one thing I want to add to that, Peter, solid opinion from you, by the way, since you're dealing with brands working in this space exclusively. I think your opinion counts more than mine. But one thing I've observed, I was recently sitting on multiple boards, whether it's the Cleveland Research Council, FMI, etc. And I was chatting with either chief digital officers, chief customer officers who are working with retail. And generally, I think most felt that there is a slowdown in brand investment on the digital side. Obviously, in a world where brick and mortars come back, we just said that, looks differently, but it still made a comeback. The need for display, other offer-seeking consumers requires investments to come from somewhere. So there is a slowdown on the e-commerce side. My only word of caution to everybody is, if you start looking at where growth still exists, I still feel even after maturity in the industry that's been achieved over 4 years, e-commerce is still largely untapped. I mean, you and I go back a decade in e-com. I remember starting it up for Frito back in like 2012, before that word was even known to most. And I'll tell you, it's a space where when the right actions are taken and the right capabilities are built, your growth has got to be more than that 8-10% kind of run rate that you see. And if you flex your muscle in that space, because of the unique world of search, which is so different from limited display space in store, you can be the boss. And only you define what your growth rate is. And things such as share of the category matter. So you have a benchmark, but they don't matter as much as they do in the in-store business. So hopefully brands continue to harvest their, and I'm not saying omnichannel, I'm referring to e-commerce more than anything else here.
No, I understand. So Sri, let me change the topic again, because I think we're generally in alignment on that. The thing that I'm hearing a lot from CPG brands right now is the emergence of social commerce, and particularly around TikTok Shop, right? With all the, put aside all the political hullabaloo that's taking place in Washington around TikTok, just the incredible power that this new commerce channel, and it's interesting because Instagram tried doing it, it didn't succeed, but TikTok, it really seems to have taken off. And in many cases, TikTok shops, and we had some great conversations. I certainly did at Shop Talk with some of the people because TikTok came there in force. But influencer marketing is really powerful, and when you connect that with immediate commerce capabilities like a TikTok shop, it could be a really big transformational moment, particularly as they start plugging those into, TikTok says, hey, you can connect your Amazon storefront right to a TikTok shop and use the fulfillment mechanisms. Now, the downside of that is it really only works for 3P sellers right now. I'm sure there's a lot of push from the big brands that doing it 1P that they want to get a piece of that action too without having to build their own fulfillment mechanism. But TikTok shops are a promising future for brands. And I'd like to know your thought around social commerce. What are you thinking is coming on?
Number one, I think we all have to accept the reality. When it comes to food, TikTok has really caused an explosion in the creator economy of recipes and recipe-based hunting. Gen Z is literally learning cooking through TikTok. I mean, how insane is that? I'm going to take a second here to actually say hello to Peter's daughter, Nadia. How you doing, Nadia?
Nadia, Sri says
I don't know if
hi.
she can hear me with your headset, Peter.
She can't, but she just wants to say hi to you, Sri.
Hi.
She's all dressed up. It's a big weekend. Easter's tomorrow. And we went hunting for Easter eggs on the Guilford Green today.
Did you guys find them any?
Nadia, did you find lots of Easter eggs on the green?
Yeah.
And what was in those?
What was in the Easter eggs? She's eating chocolate and candy right now. So
It was some chocolate Easter eggs and the shoes, and then the rest was stickers.
So we're learning there were chocolate Easter eggs. And Peter,
it was a big day on the green, Sri.
Enjoy these moments because, my daughters are older. I do miss these moments. And I even fondly go back 40 years when I was a child and going to St. Thomas Cathedral on right by my house up on Chaurangi Road in Kolkata and actually participating in the Easter egg hunt. Even though I wasn't Christian, it would be welcome. And it used to be so much fun.
There you go. All right, Nadia.
Your daughter is an example of, 5-7 years from now, when she starts getting curiosity and wanting to cook her own food or experiment, she's going to go to social channels to learn before she asks you or her mom on how to cook. And that creator economy is just exploding. TikTok is one such format.
It's crazy.
TikTok Shop has carved a niche for itself completely. A lot of stuff is actually bought through TikTok that I'm not so sure the largest brands in the world are actually aware of. It might not be relevant for larger brands with price points.
Well, as I said to you, it's challenging for them because the easiest way to get into it is connecting to a storefront you already have, notably Amazon, the biggest marketplace in the world. The challenge is that right now that only works if you're selling 3P. If you're selling 1P,
3P or FBA in that example.
Exactly.
And so To me, what I look at is if we go 15, 20 years back in history, large scale brands did not have all these competitive threats. Now they have. Is CPG expanding at a pace where the largest brands can simply ignore these mechanisms and say, hey, I'm going to stick to my proven and tested methodologies? Well, it's a battle for share, right?
Well, it is.
If the economy, CPG economy, is expanding at a pace where it really doesn't matter and you can stick to a growth formula, I would say ignore these. But that's not the case. The CPG economy is not expanding like 7% a year. It definitely isn't. You don't see that in the GDP.
Brands are going to be successful with TikTok shops also have to recognize that what will drive success may not necessarily be the size of the brand.
Well said.
But may well be the price point and the margin opportunity that presents. I was just talking with one brand that sells big consumer products, and they were focusing on their high velocity brands. The problem with those is they had fairly low price points. And so to get the kind of critical mass to make that transaction valuable is not necessarily realistic. We pointed them to another brand of theirs, which while it doesn't have the unit volume, the price points are about 10x what their core fast moving consumer goods are. And they had such a viral audience on TikTok that shifting their focus to that brand presented them with a much more realistic opportunity in this mechanism to generate a tremendous amount of profitable, and I emphasize that, profitable sales.
The only thing I would say, Peter, is even if you've got a low ASP, average selling price SKU, focus on paychecks and bundling to drive that basket up.
Yeah.
Do closet loading, pantry loading. I mean, you define what that is. Do not ignore is what I'm saying, because the creator economy is blossoming in ways that the traditional marketer, coming out of Marketing 5104 with Philip Kotler's book on the 4 Ps, it's not a focus area. It's a focus area now, but those marketers are going to be in decision positions 15 years from today. Is it too late? Are tenured marketers listening to their junior assistant brand managers, etc., coming in and saying, hey, we need to look at left and right and A and B and upside down, any which one way till Sunday comes home? That's my pet peeve, right? And I'm not referring to a brand or a group of brands or one category. I'm saying that holistically of scale brands, irrespective of the category. So I don't say pantry loading, I say closet, because it could be clothes and apparel for all you know. It could be toys, could be in any category, not around grocery.
Call it garage loading.
Exactly. You got it, man. Bottom line, influencer marketing, social commerce is on the uptick. And if TikTok has been banned in other countries such as India. You cannot use TikTok in India, and you can't beat your way around with VPNs and things of that nature. If it does get banned over here, that creator economy first will take a significant hit, which will make it a radically unpopular decision from a voting standpoint. Again, who am I to know how this country votes, and who am I to say anything about that? I'm not qualified in that space at all. But there's a creator economy with a certain generation that actually creates income through TikTok. Many of them will quickly shift over to Instagram if they have the followership. But that's why you notice that those that create content on TikTok also repeat the exact same video and the messaging on Instagram.
Well, let's be honest, Sri. I mean, that's how do I get most of my TikTok content? Because I generally don't. I have the app on there for the CPG guys, but I haven't used it much. I see most of the TikTok content that's been repurposed onto Instagram.
Are you saying the CPG guys need to get on TikTok ASAP? We used to 2 years ago, and then I stopped.
I know. And then we get distracted and it doesn't necessarily resonate with us. But the reality is that for a good part of
I think you and I are going to have to figure it out, Peter.
Yeah, we kind of have to stop being old curmudgeons.
We do need to belong on Instagram and TikTok. It's an error and we have to figure it out. If there were only 26 hours in a day, considering we're doing this on a Saturday.
If only we had people in our lives who could teach us about TikTok, say recording artist family members.
How about we ask our audience right here? You want to coach Peter and Sri about how to make TikTok videos or Instagram reels? Ping us, let us know. We'll be happy to take your coaching. Maybe you can reverse mentor us. We're happy to do that.
We are not above recognizing our own shortcomings and areas for improvement. And this is definitely one.
Not a core skill set of the CPG guys. So bring it on, coach us. We'll take it happily. So let me remind our audience that this is Sri PVSB, co-host of the CPG Guys, speaking to the state of the CPG industry in early April 2024. So Peter, I'm going to go to the area of capabilities. You and I have used a term here often that I once used at J&J and kind of socialized it in the industry: SCANR, search, content, assortment, user experience, navigation, ratings and reviews. If I remember correctly, that was a terminology created by Chester Twigg, the then global chief customer officer in 2016. He's at BIC now. It's been 8 good years since it was created. Does it still apply? If not, what's the new additions? Like if we're talking social commerce, where would that even fit? Where would social culture even fit in here? Is ratings and reviews still even something that matters at scale? So I'd love to hear from you, coming from the shoes that you wear, Flywheel Digital. What are you guys looking at?
So does it still resonate? I'll tell you that I met with Chester at CES this year. And while the term SCANR isn't being used at BIC, he's repurposed that. And the term that BIC uses is called Spark. And I'm not going to go through the acronym, but it still holds true that there's still a lot of value.
Hats off to Chester.
Chester is, he's brought the culture with him, and the organization is aligned around that. So I think, yeah, there's absolutely. When we talk about ratings and reviews, let's just...
Hey, wait, Peter, you know the rule on the CPG guys. When you say an acronym, you have to tell us what it is. Maybe you'll get to it. I'll wait for it.
Are we talking user-generated content, or are we talking Spark?
Both.
Well, Spark, I'm not, because I don't have the reference in front of me, but the search is the same, and a lot of the term, it's, find different words, but essentially it's still SCANR, which is search, content, assortment, navigation, and ratings and reviews. But let's talk about ratings and reviews. I think the next challenge for most brands is understanding that there's still a position for text-based ratings and reviews, right? But I think there's transformation that's going on, and generative AI is helping that. The need to go through and read 10,000 reviews to get all of the sentiment, and now the ability to take natural language processing, train it against a data set, and create these summary reviews that take into account the most commonly found sentiment across those reviews makes it a lot better than the old days where you would just, choose and highlight the most popular positive and most popular negative review. And that may not encompass all of the sentiment necessarily to help people make educated conversion decisions. But that being said, the next step is, how do I take all of this tremendous content that users are creating in a visual format, right? Video, how can I train and learn against those powerful data sets to curate all that content and bring it back to consumers rather than make them run through all of the different videos that were uploaded as part of the text-based review process. So there's still a lot that's going on there. Yes, ratings and reviews still have high correlation to search placement on quite a number of marketplaces, Amazon being one of them, Walmart being another, Kroger, to a lesser extent on Target, if you believe some of the third-party analysis. But generally speaking, those are very important. And I think all of that assortment, Sri, if I told you how critically important price-packed architecture is to the success of unified commerce brands, they still don't have it figured out. There's still a lot of work to happen.
That's a big miss in my opinion. And the A part, assortment part, it fits squarely bang in the center. And I think we're a little misguided in thinking that assortment is, does everything online show up in store, and vice versa? Does everything in store?
No.
Assortment is price pack architecture.
It is. You have to decide. Well, I mean, even if you go into physical club stores, right? The club pack isn't the same from one to the next. It's slightly different because there are reasons for that from the standpoint of advertising and promoted price and other things like that. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and brands need to be more focused on having the right assortment and architecture around pricing rather than making sure every single item is available online. I was looking for a particular snack that my daughter likes, and there are certain marketplaces that I can find it on and certain ones that I can't. And I'm sure that that is a conscious decision on their part, not an omission on their part, because they're a pretty sophisticated manufacturer. I'd be shocked if it weren't by conscious decision. So yeah, to answer your question in a long way, yeah, SCANR is still highly relevant. Are there other skill sets they need? I think that the principles still apply to, and if you think of a TikTok shop as just another channel, yeah, that's an architecture decision you have to make. Like we heard someone say the other day, TikTok shops may be a really meaningful platform to do limited time offers. If you can control and do drop ship of the inventory, that can be a really powerful mechanism. So that just gets into the price back architecture again. I think SCANR that was coined by Chester and deployed throughout J&J, and he's carried on after he's left there, I think it's still highly relevant and highly important in how brand marketers and salespeople go to market.
Chester, I wanted you to hear it. We wanted you to hear it here first. You are forever immortalized in the CPG Hall of Fame by creating the SCANR framework for how to measure success in
so big
e-commerce and omnichannel. So I want to go to the single most important metric to measure success in an omnichannel world. People will say it's house, share of voice on search. Some will say ROAS, iROAS, a lot of stuff, but we'll all default to category share is the single most important metric. And I would say absolutely not, because there's not a lot of data available in e-commerce. So you don't have the same as syndicated on brick and mortar. How do you even know if that's accurate? How do you even know if you're measuring more than 50% of your channel? And there are lots of complexities, such as intermediaries that you can back into a ton of data, forecast, predict, things of that nature to some accuracy. To me, Peter, none of that stuff is as important as one single metric in the world of omnichannel, and that is your growth rate. And I'm even going to give some basic opinion here on what qualifies as good or bad. Obviously, it'll vary by category. Single-digit growth rates are not acceptable. They need to be double-digit, and they need to be moonshots. If you do moonshots in the growth rates you established for your digital omnichannel retail business, you land in the double-digit, and you'll be happy with what you get. It's area that's still far from being exploited. Thoughts? Single most important one?
Well, here's what I will say to you, Sri. Yes, let me put on my flywheel hat right now. Do we provide our clients with market share numbers and share of voice metrics? Absolutely, we do. But at the end of the day, the company is squarely focused around driving.
Hey, to be fair, I look at them every day myself.
Oh, you do? They're great KPIs. But at the end of the day, we are primarily focused on growing the revenue of our clients. And to your point, getting at that double-digit growth rate is and should remain the focus of people who are in the digital commerce space. End of story.
Could not agree more, right? Like, create your metric, create your moonshot, create your objective, and chase it to the extent that it's still profitable, makes sense, doesn't dilute other efforts. But because it's such a vast unknown territory, which is going to develop some more, I think growth rate is the number one thing that will create some greatness in this space. Finally, Peter, we'll wrap up this episode with our favorite word, artificial intelligence.
That's 2 words, isn't it, Sri?
AI.
I think when you said that to Padma, she almost fell out of her chair.
We have guests here, dime a dozen, that come and talk about AI. I want to hear your opinion, and then I'm going to give you mine. Is artificial intelligence, and let's just say AI. Let's not even call it artificial intelligence, because that's the word of the day. Is it a buzzword? Is it a phenomenon? And let's talk about why we think, is it a buzzword or a phenomenon, no matter what we pick.
All right. So let's break down AI into what we would consider the machine learning part of it, which is taking tasks that we're currently doing that are repetitive, that are dreary and dull, and automating those processes, right? That is machine learning. Now let's talk about something fundamentally different, which is creating something new from existing data sets. Now, generative AI is what that new phenomenon is. So we tend to focus on the power of generative AI to create imagery or to answer questions contextually that we have rather than specifically. But the reality of generative AI is that its most powerful capability is to create more code, right? That is the power. It's the ability to very quickly generate more code. So Sri, as I said, with generative AI, the most powerful capability that's coming out of this is just the ability to create more code. And there was a time years ago when we thought, I think Padma said it very well, your future would be secure if you could write code. And the fact of the matter is generative AI is now making it substantially easier for an AI model to create new code than it is for someone to try and bang it out. So I think AI, it's a buzzword, but it's a buzzword that will solve two problems. It will just automate and highly accelerate our ability to activate against all the components that are needed in the commerce world to generate copy that is retailer specific, imagery that is evocative of the needs of different types of platform. It is big. It is moving very quickly, and brands need to understand what are the different components, those that are about more machine learning and those that are about truly creating new content to help accelerate consumer experience and drive conversion, aid discovery, all those things. It's not just a buzzword. It is a transformative tool in the unified commerce ecosystem. That's my POV. What do you think?
No debate, Peter. The word AI itself is used by most as a buzzword, but artificial intelligence is a phenomenon that I cannot argue against. AI has been around over 10 years, right? If you go back to the early days of Amazon shopping, it was AI that would actually make suggestions. Others also bought stuff that looks like this. You may be interested in stuff that look like that. That was AI in the making 10 years ago. AI is actually when we started getting concerned on privacy maybe 10 years ago, something you say and then Facebook shows you a contextual ad for where you are, what you just spoke of. That was AI in the making 10 years ago. So AI is actually here. It's all around us. We've accepted it, whether we want to admit it or not. It's in our life every single day. To me, the most important part of artificial intelligence now that makes it a phenomenon is actually the computing power.
Yeah.
And remember, it's garbage in, garbage out. If you feed AI and artificial intelligence with garbage data, the insights you're going to get is garbage insights in the first place. For our conversation today, I actually went to 3 different platforms, Google, ChatGPT, and open source AI. And I asked all of them last night before this episode was created, give me trends for the first quarter of 2024 that the CPG guys should speak about. They could not offer me insights. All of them said we don't have enough data to formulate opinions. So to me, that piece matters a lot as well. But the computational power is what really, really excites me. And that's more it's ML than machine learning than anything else.
But it's also driven by the power of the user. You know what you and I need? You and I need to have a conversation with our dear friend Imtiaz Ahmed.
Sure.
Because he could probably provide us with the proper prompt language to get the answers that you were looking for. Because I think some of it is, I hate to say it, Sri, a little bit of user error on our part, right? These tools are only...
I'm not saying no.
I know. No, I'm just saying, I think it's out there. I just think you and I don't have as much of a mastery of what are the necessary prompts and the outputs that can be generated by those to really leverage it. Like I remember seeing Melissa Burdick on the Criteo stage at Shop Talk, and they asked her if you could master one skill right now, what would it be? And she said, I'd master AI so I knew how to drive prompts to make my life so much more efficient.
And Peter, I think we're saying the same thing, because I'm actually saying to the industry, retail or CPG, doesn't matter, CPG brands.
Yeah.
Take the word artificial intelligence very seriously. Don't treat it as the buzzword AI. Understand the artificial intelligence component of this, the immense computing power that comes through ML, and the ability for AI to actually make recommendations, make forecasts. I mean, it can take 10 years of data and give you a forecast in a handful of seconds. Very difficult to do otherwise through a standard mathematical model and analytics. The horsepower that will come from artificial intelligence in forecasting alone is significant. So I'm going to go here on a limb and say artificial intelligence is a phenomenon. Please do not allow that to become a buzzword as AI.
Yeah, if you don't have ChatGPT, Copilot, or another generative AI app on your mobile device, your iPad or whatever, and you're not using it frequently, you're going to be left in the wake of everybody else moving rapidly ahead of you. You've got to learn how to use these tools, because doing so will stimulate the imagination in your mind, and it will inspire you to think about different ways to apply this new technology. It's beholden on you to really get engaged in this. A CPG retail commerce professional, if you're not doing it, you're cheating yourself of a huge, huge growth opportunity.
So let me remind our audience that you can find all of our content as always by going to a web browser and typing cpgguys.com. That easy. And if you think you or your company has thought leadership to contribute to a community discussion, drop us an email at contact@cpgguys.com. Again, contact@cpgguys.com. And maybe you can join us on this podcast as a guest. Don't forget to drop us a rating at cpgguys.com on the navigation bar up top, because it tells us how we're doing and having the right conversations with the right people. Thank you to our 30,000 plus followers on LinkedIn. You made this show happen, created an educational platform from which Peter and I learn a ton from every episode from each of you. Peter, thank you for joining me on a Saturday afternoon.
Sri, I'd be remiss if I didn't make mention of the fact that we're celebrating our 4-year anniversary. Can you believe it? 4 years we've been doing this, Sri.
Unbelievable. And 350 episodes plus. Absolutely wacky.
Million downloads. Crazy. It is crazy. And we still, I don't know about you, I think I know, but I still get the same excitement out of conversations now that I did when we first started doing it. A little less nervous than I was speaking to a large audience through a podcast, but I love what we've been able to do. And I'm so heartened. I was just at, I think I told you a couple of days ago, I was at the Western Michigan Food Marketing Conference, and seeing all these, particularly students, come up and say, I love listening to your podcast. I learned so much about the industry from.
In that case, Peter, I'll go back 4 years and 10 days in history to COVID. Right when COVID hit us, it was in New York City, it was 18th March 2020. 20th March 2020, I called you and said, how about making videos that can spread education, all the stuff we've been lucky enough to learn? And I'm glad you took the phone call. And I'm also glad that you were willing to morph and coach me that maybe it's a podcast and it's not videos. And it was May that we actually launched the first one, 2020.
Yeah.
And 4 years later, I think we've created an education platform where you and I are benefiting the most from a learning perspective.
Sure. We hear about all these ideas, but the fact that we can spread this out and it resonates with so many people, I mean, that is what we hear the most when we run into people. Like, thank you for helping educate this industry we're in. That's the greatest thanks we can get.
Thank you to our audience. That's a wrap of this episode. See you soon in another episode of the CPG Guys.
The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.